So without further ado, we have the lovely Claire Drage, who's going to be talking about private lending, how to be the bank. And I'm super excited to hear this because she's got an awesome program.
Thank you so much. It's thanks, Eric and Tom. It's such a pleasure to kind of get to hang out with you guys. Can you give me sharing permissions?
Of course.
Tom, awesome.
Make co-host. Yep.
Awesome. Share. Okay, got it. Hold on, I'll get there in a second. La la la. Okay, perfect. Does it look good? Okay, awesome, fabulous. So private lending. So we're going to talk this evening a bit about private lending, whether you need money, you have money, and do you want to make money? I'm Claire Drage. I am a licensed mortgage broker. I am an elite trainer with real estate investors, and I do consider myself a private lending expert. And I'm hoping this evening I can show you what I mean by that. So as a mortgage broker, we can do regular mortgages, you know, boring. One of our specialty areas is working specifically with real estate investors. So real estate investors that are typically in one of three specific strategies. They could be all three or just one of them. So one of our follow-ups, you know, we'll send this over to Tom and Eric, will be a copy of the 3 ebooks that I've written on those 3 specific strategies. So the first one is quick cash. You're a real estate investor and you just want to grow capital. You want to build capital. You want to build liquid assets. So you might be using some quick cash strategies such as wholesaling, assignments, flipping, rent to own. Could say the BRRRR or BRRRR conversion. For your attendees that don't know what a BRRRR is, it's B and lots of R's, and it stands for buy, renovate, rent, refinance, rinse and repeat. And so building quick cash is just basically all about you building a couple of $100,000 cash in your bank account. The second one would be cash flow. Maybe you're looking to buy real estate to create a monthly income, whether that's to retire early, quit your job, or avoid having to go back to work after maybe a maternity leave. And the final one is private lending. This is maybe where you don't want to own real estate, you don't want to be a landlord, but you still consider real estate being a good investment. And you can either own the bricks with quick cash and cash flow, or you can loan on the bricks with private lending. And the private lending is the one that we're going to talk a bit more about today. And one of the things that I love to, you know, start with is a lot of people say to me, you know, why do I spend a lot of time, you know, talking about private lending and the opportunity? And it comes down to me, you know, I always remember when I first arrived in Canada, and I landed in the September, and the following February, I got a new job, and, you know, everyone was talking about, have you bought your RSPs yet? There's this big rush in February to buy RSPs before the deadline. And in inquiring with people, you know, what is these RSPs? Why are you buying them? I was kind of shocked to hear that people were buying RSPs to get a tax refund. Because I kind of like, is this like Christmas? You can only do it once a year? Like, well, what is with this? And it never really made sense to me that people would just go, you know, so if I buy 100,000 in an RSP, I get more than 100 back in a tax refund, but obviously you don't. So it always intrigued me about this concept of, you know, buying RSPs and then handing them over to someone and just kind of praying that they made any money. So it kind of got me into sort of different investment vehicles, and one of them is private lending. And I enjoy helping just regular folks like you and I become the bank. You know, we don't have to have a big green comfy couch or a roaring lion on our logo to make money by loaning other people money. And so that's kind of what we really enjoy talking about. So just like supply and demand in the real estate market, You need to find a balance between those that need money and those that have money. So we're going to touch on both areas today. We're going to talk a bit about the lender as well as the borrower, the risk. I'll guarantee you over the next 20 minutes or so, I'm probably going to answer 90% of questions, but I would definitely encourage, post your questions or comments in the chat portion. And if I don't answer them, we'll make sure we have plenty of time at the end, because I am going to go through the good, the bad, and the ugly, and a few live deals so that your audience has got a good scope before they decide if it's something that they want to, look at further. So with that in mind, I want to start about being our own controllers. I know, having gone through, the subprime crash, 2007, 2008, also there's Black Friday, Blue Wednesday, and all sorts of wonderful moments in history where, depending on where you're at in your life cycle, seeing people lose their retirement plans, see people lose in the stock market overnight hundreds, if not millions of dollars. And the one thing that I've always advocated for is we've got to be our own comptroller. We've got to be our own CFO, Chief Financial Officer. I don't know, I think the days are gone where you just blindly hand over your hard-earned savings to someone else and hope that they're acting in your best interests and that they're going to give you a good return and meet your investment needs. So one of the challenges would be to have, your audience look at their current investments and figure out, what are you invested in? When I say to a client, oh, you've got 300,000 in an RSP, that's fabulous. What's it invested in? And they're like, oh, RBC. Well, I don't think you have 300,000 in RBC shares. You probably got some financial planner at RBC managing that portfolio for you. Where is it invested? And I'm always surprised that people just don't know. And I think we've just got to take more control. And part of that can be making a decision if private mortgages is part of taking some of that control. And so Albert Einstein, I swear to God, he was probably the first mortgage broker in the universe, because there's a lot of things that he talks about that really resonate with me. And he talks about the rule of 72. So the rule of 72 is where you take the interest rate you're earning, divide that by 72, and it will tell you how many years it will take you to double your money. So the rule of 72 is a great it's a great sort of formula to figure out, if I have $100,000 now and I want to retire in 5 years and I want that 100,000 to be 200,000, it can help you figure out what return you need to earn plus the compounding in order for it to double. So I always use this as a bit of a test when you're speaking to financial planners or advisors, to ask them to apply the rule of 72 to your portfolio. So let's go through an example. It's been a while since I've updated the rates of GICs. I think right now they're probably 0.4% or 0.6%, but I figured I'm going to assume you have a GIC making maybe just under 2%. So if you take 72, divide it by 1.75, it will take 41 years for your $100,000 to become $200,000. I mean, I'm no spring chicken anymore. 41 years sounds like a long time to me. If you were to take the average real estate return of 10%, and you've guessed it, divide that by 72, 7.2 years. I don't know how comfortable I am waiting an extra 33.8 years for my money to double. And so when I look at the rule of 72, whether you're going backwards and figuring out, I need my money to double in 8 years, divide that by 72, it tells you the interest rate you need to earn, or you just take your current return, and maybe you're in dividend paying stocks, you're making 4 to 6% a year. Is there an opportunity to diversify into real estate as well? I'm not saying, take everything away from your financial advisors. I'm just saying be more aware of what you're invested in and what is your net annual return. Because if you were to apply the rule of 72 to your portfolio, when will it double? That's the number that I'd like to hear. Okay, so I want to talk about a self-directed account. It's a little bit different from a regular account, and it's basically where you have the ability to self-direct where your registered investments are. So it's a specific registered account, and you have a specific trustee, and you can basically use an RSP, a LIRA, a RIF, and a LIF, or a TFSA, and you, the owner of that account, determine the asset mix. So you can determine where it's invested. And in this particular case, here on the screen is a big list of all the eligible investments CRA will allow you to invest in. We're going to talk about mortgages in real property in Canada. So it is in essence, you becoming the bank, a private lender. You're passively investing in real estate without being the landlord. You're actually acting no differently than the big green comfy couch or the red and white bank or the Roaring Lion bank. It doesn't matter. You're just acting exactly the same as a regular bank and have the same asset protection as those as well. So when you think about private lending, you're like, well, Claire, I have 150,000 between my TFSA and my RSP. I would like that to make more money. I don't need to spend it now. I'm saving for the future. So, how do I find a borrower? And how do I qualify the borrower? What if they're stupid with their money and don't pay me back? What if they wreck the house, or it's a hoarder house, or, what are my risks? It's one thing to, put my money in stocks and bonds and mutual funds, but these is human beings. I don't want to evict, a single mom with 3 children because she's lost her job and can't pay it back. So how do we mitigate that? How do I decide who I want to loan to? Now, obviously, working with a professional mortgage broker like myself, we do all of that screening for you. There are 3 questions you must have answered as the lender. And there are 3 easy questions, but sometimes difficult for some people to answer. The first one is, why are they using your money, private money, and not the bank? So is it because they don't qualify at the banks? Do they have crappy credit? Are they unemployed? Have they had a bad history? Like what is the reason that they're looking to you for private money as opposed to getting it from the bank? You need that question answered. The second question is, what are they going to do with your money and how do we control it? So for example, if you're loaning to a regular homeowner and they're going to pay off debt, so we don't just give them $100,000 and say, off you go pay off your credit cards. It goes to the lawyers, and the lawyers will actually pay off the credit cards directly. So what are they going to do with your money, and how is that being controlled? The third question is, how are they going to pay it back? So what is what we call the exit strategy? How is that borrower actually going to pay you back? So we're going to answer all 3 of these questions. What I'm going to do in the next slide is talk about the different types of borrowers and what we specialize in here at the Windrose Group. So before we do that, often people say to me, well, what can I use to invest? Like, I don't have $300,000 sat in my bank account. So there are 2 different categories of investment access to capital you can use. Obviously, I've mentioned earlier, RSP, LIRA, TFSA, and an RESP. Usually the biggest surprise here is a LIRA. A lot of people will say, but that's locked in, I can't touch that. It's locked in from you cashing it out unless it's due to financial hardship, or until you reach retirement age, and then you can start to withdraw from it. But it's not locked in from you determining where it's invested. But typically when you leave an employer and their pension plan, you get a LIRA. The natural course of action is the same company that's managing the registered pension plan for the employer you just left also has this, side hustle managing your LIRA as well. And so the perception is that it's locked in, you can't touch it. But again, you can decide where it's invested. And so you have a choice. It's your money. Whichever way you cut it, this is your money. So controlling where it's invested is hugely important. Of course, you can cash out existing investments, use cash, or a secured line of credit. If you've got access to equity in your home, if you borrow money from your principal home or any property through a line of credit or a mortgage, and you invest that, the interest you pay actually becomes a tax deduction. So there are also tax benefits by leveraging the equity in your home as well. We don't recommend you maxing everything out. We have certain strategies based on individual scenarios because we don't want you to over leverage. We want to make sure that you have access to capital yourself and you're not over borrowing. So how safe is your investment? Okay, I'm going to give someone a private first mortgage. It's going to go through my lawyer. How safe and secure is it? I cannot tell you it's guaranteed, but I can tell you who the borrowers are, what the profile of the borrower is, what's the likelihood of default, and if default should occur, what is the process? So with that in mind, there are two types of borrowers. There are your regular homeowners. So this is someone who owns their principal home, and maybe they have gone through a messy divorce, they've gone through a job loss, they could be recently self-employed. Because remember, I've got to answer that question: why don't they qualify at the bank? They could have crappy credit. They could have poor spending habits. So these are regular homeowners that have equity in their home, and some are going, woohoo, I've won the lottery, the real estate market, thanks to Tom and Eric's help. Real estate markets, my home's worth a fortune. I'm going to take it out and run to Vegas, or go on a vacation, or buy a fancy car or a boat or a truck. So they're not the borrowers I would loan to, because they're using their home as an ATM. They're not changing their spending habits. So bad things happen to good people. We want to help good people, not stupid people. So I actually do not loan to regular homeowners. At the Windrose Group, we focus on the second category. And I'll tell you why. Regular homeowners have no control over their access to unsecured debt. So I might get them a $50,000 private mortgage to clear off their debt, improve their credit, make them bankable, but I have no control what they do afterwards. If they don't change their spending habits, I have no control of them going out and buying a new truck and racking up their credit cards again. So I actually don't like regular homeowners, because if things go wrong, I'm the person that the lender is going to call, and I don't want those phone calls. So I actually don't loan to regular homeowners. I personally focus on the second group, real estate investors. So these are real estate investors that are looking to flip properties, or that BRRRR strategy that I talked about earlier: buy, rehab, rent, refinance, rinse and repeat. Now here at the Windrose Group, we have a very specific profile of real estate investor who's a borrower. The first one is they must have excellent credit. So if you happen to be a borrower out there right now and you're thinking, well, I'd like to flip properties, but I have no money, we do actually offer 100% financing. As a borrower and as a lender, you could also offer up to 100% financing. But the profile of the borrower, this is where it's super important, because the likelihood of foreclosure or default is going to be based on the profile of the borrower and, of course, the asset that they would lose if things go wrong. Real estate investors with us who are flipping and borrowing, the three criteria are: they must have excellent credit rating, so no ex-bankrupts, no crappy credit, no poor money management, no over leverage. They must own their own principal home and or other rental properties, so have other assets we can go after if things don't go so well. And then the third criteria, this one's probably one of my favorites. These borrowers are full-time real estate investors. So they're buying 1 to 30 plus a month. So they're not buying just 1 or 2 rentals, they're buying 10, 20, 30 a month. So therefore, to answer that question we have, which is why are they using private money and not the bank? It's going to be that opportunity, creating that win-win for both the borrower, the banker, and the broker. So what I mean by that, I'm going to jump onto that, the default in a second. What I mean by that is, if I want to flip properties or I want to BRRRR, I could get bank financing because I have good credit, I own other assets, I have good, qualifying. But I can go to my bank today, get approved for the purchase, I've just gone under contract, and then 2 weeks from now, I want to buy another one because there's another one for sale down the road, I've got economies of scale with my trades, products, etc. I then go back to the bank who says, oh, well, we need to cancel the approval we gave you last week. We need to re-underwrite that because now you're buying 2 properties. So the bottom line is I'll never actually close on any if I keep buying. So I can get my financing from the bank and buy one every 2 or 3 months. Or I can use private financing and I can buy 20 a month. So it's the difference between wholesaling and wholesale and retail. It's no, and remember, these are business owners as borrowers. So you kind of look at it and go, okay, Eric, I can give you, you come to the bank, I say, okay, Eric, I can give you, $300,000 at prime plus a quarter for your business. You're like, yay, that's awesome. Won't get me much based on the prices in Toronto for me to buy many properties, but thank you very much. Or Claire says, I'll give you 10 million a month, but it's going to cost you 9, 10, or 11% for the time you're borrowing it. So Eric's going, well, I've just got wholesale versus retail. No different. We don't go and buy one toilet roll. We buy, a whole pack of 6 or 30, like we used to in the pandemic, but it's the same principle. So Eric's not going to pay 10% for 25 years. He's going to look at it and go, I'm only paying that for 3 months or 4 months. But if I've got an opportunity win versus the cost of borrowing, just like Eric's hand motions there, it's finding that balance. So let's look at, I went backwards, don't want to go backwards. I think it's important to look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I want to talk about the responsibilities of the borrower. And this is not for you as a lender to understand and study. It really is for you to understand that working with someone who does understand it and knows how it works is important when you select the private lending opportunity. So there are 5 key responsibilities for the borrower. Before I go on these, I want to talk about the 2 that the lender has. So if you're a lender, you have 2 responsibilities. One is these are legal responsibilities under the Mortgages and Loans Act. One is you must have the money when you commit to loaning it. And the second one is leaving the borrower in quiet possession of their property. And all that really means is some people say to me, well, Claire, I drove by their property and the recycle bins were still outside and it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, or, the grass looks a bit long. And I'm like, no, you can't do that. You've got to leave them in quiet possession of their property. No different to my bank doesn't come knock on my door every 5 minutes because my yard doesn't look pristine, So just leave the borrower in quiet possession of their property. So the borrower's responsibility. So we need to understand deemed default. A lot of people go, well, if they stop making the mortgage payments, they're in default, right? Yes, that's one of 5 areas. But they can be in default if any of the following are not adhered to. So the first one is they have to adhere to the terms and conditions of the mortgage, make the payments, pay you back at the end of the term, etc. They also need to keep the property taxes up to date. So every March and September, we ask our borrowers for up-to-date property tax statements to make sure that not just when they got the mortgage from you, that they maintain the property taxes in good standing. They must keep condo fees up to date. They also must keep a valid homeowner's insurance policy, as well as keep the property well maintained. So for example, I might get a notice that says the home insurance policy has lapsed due to non-payment. That's deemed default. We can start default proceedings within 15 days of that occurring. But hold on, they've made the mortgage payments, they've paid the property taxes, the condo fees are up to date, and the property is well maintained. Doesn't matter. Any one of these that is in default or is not adhered to is deemed default, or we can jump into legal action. So default process, I don't want to bore you guys with the legal process, so I'm going to go through this pretty quick. Ideally, it's really just to understand. It typically takes about 80 days for a full power of sale, which is the process we go through here in Ontario. It's more common than foreclosure because it's faster. So day one, they don't make a mortgage payment. They have 15 days to make that whole before you can start the legal power of sale process. So after 15 days, you send a notice of sale under mortgage. You have to wait 35 days or 40 days if it's a married couple. I don't know, maybe it takes them 5 days to discuss it with each other extra. I really have never understood why it takes an extra 5 days if you're married. Who knows? Maybe it's the courage for one person to tell the other one that they've not paid the mortgage. I don't know. So they've got 35 to 40 days after day 15 to respond to that notice of sale. At day 50 to 60, you then issue a statement of claim, and they have 20 days to respond, at which point you actually get what's called a writ of possession. The sheriff evicts the borrowers, the property is prepared and listed for sale by the lender, you. And then obviously day 80 plus, the property is sold, the lender is made whole. If there's any balance left from the sale, any balance of funds left from the sale, then that does go to the borrower. That's the difference between power of sale versus foreclosure. With foreclosure, it's a longer process, it has to go through the courts. And if there's any money left over, it goes to the lender. Really, I'll be honest with you, foreclosure is a long, drawn out process. And you really only want to do that if you want to own the property. Power of sale is quick, easy, and efficient. One of the questions I often get is, well, how many defaults have you had, Claire? How many power of sales have you gone through? I've in my 18 years of doing this, I've had 3 issues, 2 of which went through power of sale. All 3 cases, the lender was made whole. There was enough money for everyone to be paid out. All 3 of them were regular homeowners. Regular homeowners, you know, and that's one of the reasons I do not work with regular homeowners, because the only asset they had to lose was their home. And for some people, that's not enough, depending on their personal situation. Okay, let's look at the good stuff, the return. How much money can you make? Okay, so the typical returns, if you're in first position, range from 9 to 12%. I'm going to go through some examples in a second. Second position mortgages is a 15% annual return. I don't do many second mortgages, I'll be honest with you. Most of ours are first mortgages, but we do have unlimited. We do about 200 to 225 transactions a month. We work with about 16 to 21 borrowers, all of which are these real estate investors. So they do anywhere from 1 to 30 plus a month with us. It's 1-year terms, so you're committing for 1 year. We write them so they're fully open for the borrower to pay back after 3 months with no interest. We actually want the borrower to pay you back sooner. The reason being is because you're going to charge a lender fee, which is a flat fee up front you receive, whether they have the mortgage with you for a month or 9 months. So before you decide if you want to do private lending or, you know, how do you pick the borrower, it's about an 8 to 9 page document, and it's basically an investment opportunity package. It will provide an executive summary. If we have time, I can go through a few examples. We literally we underwrite and provide all the details on the borrowers. It's pretty cool when you see the scope of these borrowers, how many they're doing. We give you pictures of past projects, lists of past projects. So you have a really good idea of the experience of these borrowers, because we all enjoy rinsing and repeating. So before I wrap up, I wanted to talk about the cost versus the opportunity. I touched on this earlier. So here, for example, is a single family home in Sault Ste. Marie, where the borrower can pick one of these up for like 160,000. They're doing a BRRRR strategy. So the goal is to buy, renovate, rent, refinance. But when they refinance, they're looking to refinance. We do it with the banks at fully discounted interest rates with 30-year amortizations to provide positive cash flow. So the goal is for them to not necessarily see the 15, 20% appreciation in value, just enough to get good quality tenants. So usually put 30 to 50,000 into the property, do renovations to a level for a regular renter, and then leaving 20% equity in the property when they refinance, but being left with positive cash flow. This particular property will rent for $19.50. And so the purchase price is $160,000. So in this example, you've got a couple of options. You can, let me find my little pointer here. Let's have a laser pointer, there you go. You can choose the loan to value. So as the lender, the borrower is looking for up to 100% of the purchase price. So maybe you want to start a little bit conservative. You're thinking, well, I'll do 80% of the purchase price. So in this case, you're going to make a return of 10% per year, made up of $802.13 per month in interest payments made to you. All our borrowers make monthly payments, as well as a $2,400 lender fee you'll collect upfront. You can go to a higher loan to value, up to 100%, where your return is now 12% annually. So in this particular case, it's $1,200 a month, as well as $4,800 flat fee lender fee that you collect up front. So if you're a borrower, I know some of you might have fallen off your chair and thought, holy smokes, that's not cheap. It's not cheap, but you're not borrowing this for 25 years. It's for, 6 months or 9 months. As a lender, one of the reasons why I really enjoy working with these types of borrowers is because they're doing such large volumes, we never don't have deals. So if you get your money back in 6 months because we've refinanced that property and they're on to the next one, we've got plenty of opportunities for you to move on to for the next one. Okay, current opportunities. I talked about sort of first mortgages, 10 to 12%. Smallest amount is about 90,000 right now, up to $500,000 plus. We can combine spousal or close family member TFSAs and RSPs and LIRAs, because maybe you've got a $12,000 LIRA and then you've got 50,000 in your TFSA and 40,000 in an RSP. As long as the accounts are all with the same trustee, we use Olympia Trust. It's the best recognized trustee that we work with. We can smush them together into one mortgage. So you don't have to have enough money in one account in order to facilitate one mortgage. I talked about 1-year terms. You receive monthly payments as well as a lender fee. The borrowers have excellent credit. They own their own real estate. They're full-time. And we manage and oversee everything. We charge the borrower a mortgage broker fee. We charge 1% to the borrower of the loan amount we secure. And we manage anything from start to finish. So getting your money out to getting it back again is part of our process. And I think that that's important, that you know that as a lender, you don't have to speak to the borrower. You don't have to see them. You don't need to go see the property. Everything is managed for you.